The news is live on Joy 99 and A1 Radio in Bogatang and myjoyonline.com. The midday news is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in pipes and water tank, with a grant of bail to illegal miners across the country for legally questioning the integrity of the
Vodafone phone numbers linked to my car. So what if some crime?
As High Court dismisses
way of exposing the rot and the
stage. But is an IMF deal the only way out of our present economic predicament?
The IMF.
This is your home of independent fear. Says the slow pace of criminal trials and grand trial for various offences. Well, the torment complexity stifling colleague Elton Broby
of 119 criminal cases at the High Court and some circuit courts around the country since the prosecution of persons engaged.
Have a sense of the nationalities.
The main offence is undertaken in 195.
Okay, now let's talk about the challenges he outlines in that statement.
Scorned afterwards. He says a number of the accused persons standing trial around the country have asked against Galamsey by being cautious in a lack of cooperation on the part of the witnesses. The process filed is attributable to the fact that witnesses in Galamsey cases
that are underway,
according to investigations, failed to seize the illegal is the failure of the arresting officers to arrest, suspend, interpret court proceedings, and the General Services Office is committed to the prosecution and punishment of suspects.
Lands and Natural Resources.
It is a historical challenge. We require a concerted, and we will continue to do just that. That the cartels operating in our forest remains absolutely determined to protect and preserve enterprises, and the cartels in our forest reserves will not be an event on this goal.
Now let's talk about the state of mining in.
Have been experiencing 34 reserve. Total area that has been mapped is about 4,000. Then this is only the size of the surface.
Executive of the Forestry Commission in a related development management buffer zone policy for the reserve. The Saridonko has been following the story. He
serves 1/3 of cases by the traditional authorities.
Layout 40 feet
around it to prevent encroachment. Now people are throwing refuse even into
to desist from extending the wall of this building into here that a minimum of 100 zone that was declared
to several, but people are beginning to realize report explaining how
to do so. And digitalization for 2021 targeting 26 million
criminals who hack our systems and defraud administration exercise will enable the establishment
regulations 2011 LI 2006.
However, this particular rule led many who did not have the cards, through no fault of theirs, marginalized. More so, those who had it were subjected to long queues and other challenges with equipment and software at various registration points.
Well, that's where we've come from up until now. Well, the National Communications Authority, in a recent press conference, admitted some MNOs abused the process at some point, but took measures to curtail it. Listen to Director Joan Ochi.
At the beginning of the SIM registration exercise, the MNOs complained that a lot of their agents did not have smartphones required for registration of new SIMs, in line with the current SIM registration process. As a result, MNOs were allowed to continue to use their legacy platform, which only required the future phone for registration. This opened the process to abuse by some actors in the registration process in stage 1. As part of the monitoring process, the NCA uncovered this abuse and immediately directed all MNOs to discontinue use of their legacy platform for registration. It is important to note that the legacy registration platform only allowed for completion of stage 1 of the SIM registration exercise without biometric capture.
But could the multiple registrations be as a result of this abuse? Well, Joy News has been finding out the experiences of some people on the streets of Accra after activating the short codes *402*1#. But first, let's hear reactions from Kumasi.
No, I haven't checked it yet.
Why?
No, it's only yesterday that I heard the number. It's not yet. So I haven't did it yet. I will do it. My Ghana card is here, so I will check it.
Let's try and see whether it would work. So you take your card. So are these your numbers?
Yes.
The three of them are your numbers. You can confirm these are your numbers.
Yes, these three are my numbers.
I'm here to check. I got the information yesterday. So I had some issues on my phone too. So I had to correct the issues before. But I'll check it. By all means, I'll check it. I have some friends who have checked. Some of them are having their card linked to 4 or 5 numbers. So I think probably I might be one of those people who is having their cards linked to several numbers. So I'll definitely check and see what I can do about it.
Okay, so
they disconnected my number, so I had to get new number to use, and I was having problem with my Ghana card. So a friend of mine registered a new SIM for me. So I'm about to connect my Ghana card to this number. Actually, I think so because. Actually, right now, this SIM I'm using or this number I'm using is not connected to my personal Ghana card. So in case the person commits something or, does something illegal and they want to trace the person, I think they can get access to my destiny, and that one can, affect me.
So these are some experiences from Kumasi. Listen to the experience in Accra.
I had 6 Vodafone numbers linked to my card, 9 Airtel Tigo numbers linked to my card, and I had 2 MTN numbers. So what if some crime has been committed already with any of these numbers?
We are still yet to get any reaction from the Ministry of Communications or the NCA for that matter. We'll continue to knock at their doors. Once we get any explanation to this, we'll bring that to you. Now let's head to the court. And an Accra High Court has dismissed the contempt case against North Tongue MP Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. The court says the evidence presented by Secretary of the National Cathedral Board of Trustees, Victor Kusi-Boateng, is fraught with inconsistencies and doubt. Reverend Boateng dragged the legislator to court, alleging he had demonstrated gross disrespect for the court by refusing to accept court documents. The MP was captured in viral videos kicking some documents. Lawyers for Mr. Ablakwa, however, described the said presentation of the documents as unconstitutional, citing parliamentary immunity. This position was this morning upheld by the court. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable was in court for us, joins us in studio with details. Joseph, let's talk about the decision itself. Why did the court describe the evidence as fraught with inconsistencies?
And so portions of the documents filed by Reverend Kusi-Boateng makes the claim that the documents, when the individual met Okudzeto-Ablakwa, he placed it in just beside him, and afterwards he kicked it. In terms of an affidavit of service that was filed by this individual who went to serve the documents, he said that he put the documents in his car. And so the court said that the standard of proof is proof beyond reasonable doubt. And this particular inconsistency means that there is doubt in the minds of a reasonable man as to what exactly happened. And the bit about parliamentary immunity, the court said that once the MP had told the individual that he was on his way to parliament, the rational thing for him to have done was not to attempt to leave the documents with him, but rather to check with the appropriate quarters whether indeed he was going to parliament, rather than engage in a banter with him to say that parliament is not in session. Then finally, the point about the identity of this individual, they said that the individual does not work with the judicial service, which is contrary to a November 2022 directive by the Chief Justice that service of documents should be effected by only staff of the judicial service. So this is what formed the basis for the court's conclusion that the contempt case has not been made against the Member of Parliament.
And Reverend Kusi-Boateng has been asked to pay some money?
Yes, lawyers for the MP asked for cost, indicating that they have been dragged to court, and the court has agreed that there's no case against them. So cost of 10,000 cedis awarded against Reverend Kusi-Boateng.
So walk us through some of the reactions, and also, was Reverend Kusi-Boateng present in court? And if he was, what was his reaction to this as well?
He was not present in court. One individual from the church, and we understand, came in to represent him, but his lawyers said, as the court pleases, that was just the statement they made in reaction to the decision. In terms of the Member of Parliament himself, Okudzeto-Ablakwa, he says this will give him the impetus to continue in his expose regarding the corruption surrounding the National Cathedral.
Clearly, the judgment is very sound. You see that even in the case that they brought, it was fraught with all kinds of inconsistencies, irregularities. You had the erudite judgment of the respected judge. At this point, we want to make it clear that what we are doing by way of exposing the rot and the canker is not just for partisan gain, as our General Secretary has said. is about the soul of our country. It's about truth, it's about justice, and it's about protecting the public purse. We cannot have people conduct themselves in ways that brings not only our country, but even the Christian faith into disrepute.
I know that the party, the NDC, I mean, we're in court also. They've been reactive. We'll come to that. But did the issue of the multiple identities of Reverend Kwesi Boateng come up at any point in time?
Yes, the judge said that the evidence before him shows that it is either one individual who uses two names, or it is one individual having multiple identities, because the evidence shows a different date of birth and different mother in terms of the tax identification numbers. But he said he was not going to make any definitive pronouncement on it because what has been given to him shows that it is undergoing some investigations at the Ghana Revenue Authority.
Okay, then briefly, the party's reaction.
Fifi Kwete says they are fully backing the Member of Parliament.
We actually were in no doubt at all. We knew truth was definitely going to prevail. It was clearly unnecessary infutility, a waste of everybody's time, an attempt to stop what we knew was just truth. And it's sad that this country has to be reduced to this level where people who are doing what is right have to be literally put into this whole exercise. Their time is wasted. Attempt is even made to create the impression that they actually are the criminals, when actually it's the rebels. So we can only say that for us, it's basically justice done, which is expected to be. And we expect the people of Ghana to take clear inspiration from this.
Now, let's move on to some other stories. And just yesterday, May 1, the 3 taxes that were approved by Parliament and assented to by President Akufo-Addo kicked in. That's the implementation. But brace yourself. Parliament may today approve an additional tax bill after MPs were recalled by Speaker of Parliament Albert Bangbing for an emergency sitting. Toll on the agenda for the House is a number of loan agreements and another outstanding tax bill. That's the Excise Stamp Amendment Bill. Let me take you live to Parliament now. Our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante, joins us on the line with details. Kweku, so what's this outstanding tax bill about?
Emefa, the Excise Stamp Amendment Bill 2022 came with a 2023 budget. What government is seeking to do is to expand the base of this tax. When you go to the market and you buy a bottled water, canned drinks, you will see that there's a stamp affixed to the top of this. This is to allow government to tax some of these materials and also to be able to track the number of goods that are being sold so that government can get the revenue. What government is seeking to do with this amendment bill is to expand the base so that they can increase the number of goods that are taxable under the Excise Stamp Amendment Bill. And so if it is passed, it is likely that government will announce a raft of new products which will now be taxable under this law.
We have the following bills, which, Mr. Speaker, we could not consider, and it's our prayer that same be considered. Now, the Excise Tax Stamp Amendment Bill 2022 and the Standard for Automatic Exchange of Financial Accounts Information Amendment Bill 2023. The Speaker, before we went for the Easter break, these were bills that we should have taken, and we've reprogrammed them for consideration today.
Let's talk about reactions, especially from the minority, Kweku.
Indeed, there are a number of loans. I could count up to 8 of them that are expected to be considered and maybe approved today. Haruna Idrisu, the former minority leader, says that some of the items that have been listed on the order paper for today are simply not matters that should have warranted the Speaker recalling Parliament from the Easter break.
You will find 75 million allocated for the construction of Ejisu-Kwenongo Road project. Then you have 98 million for the construction of the Echikrom Adosu Road project, reallocated for the construction of bypass on the Accra-Kumasi Road, number 6. Mr. Speaker, these are not matters we should be taking under certificate of urgency. We would need to thoroughly understand what went into this 750 million as it was approved. How many kilometers of road? What was the nature of the roads to be constructed? What are you modifying?
Well, so it appears it's a tall agenda, and Parliament is expected to sit for only a day. Can they finish up in time?
Well, that is the expectation, according to Alexander Martin, that they will deal with all this. Already, the parties have split position on the first loan agreement that has been considered by the House, $150 million to finance what is called the West Africa Food System Resilience Program. The minority have voted against that loan agreement at the committee level, they are expecting that they will carry through that threat to vote against that. But it's also split along political party lines. It has to do with who is able to marshal their members on the floor to be able to get some of these taxes through. But it's expected that this thing will run deep into the night today.
That's Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante. They're taking us on a quick break on the Midday News, sponsored by Petrol Sol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrol Sol is always a delightful experience, and also brought to you by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. We've been talking about the Attorney General Godfred Yeboadami saying slow pace of criminal trials and grant of bail to illegal miners who return to site is hampering the fight against illegal mining. Also been hearing from the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, who says the government is going after what he describes as a cartel mining illegally in Ghana's forest reserves. When we return, Ghana turns to Japan for support as its deal with the Paris Club and China enters a make or break stage.
We count on the support of Japan, an influential member of the International Monetary Fund, in helping Ghana to reach a good agreement with the fund.
Apologies for my inability to bring you sports today, but Ghana has turned to Japan to support her deal before the Paris Club and China for debt forgiveness or restructuring under favorable conditions. Combined, Ghana owes the two blocs $4 billion, and a deal with them will pave the way for the International Monetary Fund to approve Ghana's $3 billion bailout. So where are we? Here's an update from President Akufo-Addo.
The IMF and the World Bank have been very supportive in this journey. With the progress made so far, we expect the IMF board to consider Ghana's program for imminent approval after the financing assurances are provided.
And ahead of that crucial meeting between the Paris Club and China, which may lead to the establishment of a creditors committee, President Akufo-Addo is lobbying Japan to convince China to soften its stance on Ghana. At a joint press conference with the visiting Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, President Akufo-Addo said Ghana is at a crucial stage and requires the fund's support to stop the bleeding.
It is my earnest desire that Ghana and Japanese continually search for ways to engage. No doubt that together we can develop an even stronger partnership for cooperation between our two nations for the mutual benefit of our two people. Two peoples who are committed to the rule of law, respect for human rights, and the principles of democratic accountability. We count on the support of Japan, an influential member of the International Monetary Fund, in helping Ghana to reach a good agreement with the fund.
Well, former Minority Leader Haruna Idris, who is also the Member of Parliament for Tamale South, says the earliest the deal could be reached with the IMF will be July.
I do not foresee an IMF deal closing until July 2023. This economy will need about 10.5 billion to end this year, and the expectation is that about 3 billion will come from the IMF, another 3 billion from bilateral, multilateral donors.
That's former Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu, and it's time to enter the election headquarters. And today, in our build-up ahead of the opposition NDC primaries, to shine a light on Ningo Pram, where incumbent MP Sam George is preparing for the battle of his life. A former constituency chairman, Michael Tetekwete, is gaining ground, to vowing to unseat Sam George. There's more in this report by Kweku Asante.
Sam George is coming up against a very resourceful Michael Tetekwete, who was once chairman of the constituency. Sam George is framing this election on experience, as he says his opponent does not have what it takes to beat the NPP to retain the Ningo Pram seat for the NDC.
We are choosing experience over experiment. Wawa color TV, now black and white.
His opponent, meanwhile, a media-shy Michael Tetekwete, is slowly warming up to delegates in the constituency, as was evident in the cheers he received when John Mahama visited the constituency.
We have Honorable Samuel Nata George as one of the aspirants. We also have Michael Tetekwete, one of the aspirants.
With just 2 weeks to this election, some branch executives in the constituency, numbering about 54, say despite having been elected, they are yet to be sworn in, alleging this is a ploy to favor a specific candidate. For Joy News, Kweku Asante.
From the election headquarters, that's how we end today's edition of the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Court throws out Reverend Kusibuatin's contempt case against Ablakwa, and also it is better to convert National Cathedral to a national hospital. That's the TUC. Martin Amidu has also been speaking. New Chief Justice, last 3 stops of Akufo-Addo's long game for 2024 elections. That and more on myjoyonline.com. I am Emefa Apawu. Have a good afternoon. Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil is up next. Many thanks for your company.